Until we see you again on the next Heard Tell, we hope wherever you are across the street or around the world, you and yours are well, you're well fed. We'll talk to you tomorrow for more Heard Tell. All the music on Heard Tell is provided under a Creative Content license from monstercat.com.
Bringing you the best local talk radio shows, Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM, WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Our founders expected judges to apply, not make, our laws. I'm Trey Allen, conservative candidate for the North Carolina Supreme Court. More than 20 years ago, I began my legal career by joining the Marine Corps and taking an oath to support and defend the United States Constitution. As a justice on our state Supreme Court, I will continue to protect the Constitution by basing my rulings on the Founders' intent, not my personal views. Paid for by Trey Allen for Justice.
One Love Tennis started in 2013 to give back to young boys and girls. We now go through 460 kids a week that are learning about life skills, learning to succeed in life through academics and tennis. Putting those two together, if you do them well, you can write your own ticket. To get involved in this program, go to our website, one-love-tennis.org.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A Wilmington man will be going to prison for at least 15 years after admitting he tried to kill his estranged wife. On January 6th of 2021, witnesses and police say Matthew Stallings kicked down Aline Kinn's door while she ate dinner with their 3-year-old son. Stallings then stabbed her more than 15 times in front of their little boy. Neighbors called 911 and rushed the child away as Stallings beat Kinn, then threw her from a second-floor breezeway to the pavement below. He will spend between 15 and 18 years in prison. Kinn and her son now live in Norway. In Whiteville, police are investigating a shooting Monday night. Officers received a 911 call from the 200 block of Smith Street. When they arrived, they found a victim suffering from a gunshot wound. He was taken to Columbus Regional Medical Center and later to New Hanover Regional. No word yet on the victim's identity. A Wilmington business is boarded up after a freak accident yesterday. The driver crashed through a nail salon. The car crashed through NC Nails on Oleander Drive around 10:30 in the morning. The store had only been open for about an hour. The owner and a customer were hurt and taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say the driver will not face charges. They say he appeared to be experiencing a medical emergency and was not otherwise impaired. That investigation is ongoing. And a case involving a Marine who was shot and killed during a drug deal will be heading back to New Hanover County Court later today. Tyler Greenfield was found guilty of the shooting death of former Marine Robert Scott during a drug deal in 2015. Greenfield was sentenced to life in prison. But in 2020, the North Carolina Supreme Court overturned that first-degree murder charge. Greenfield's retrial will begin later this morning with jury selection in New Hanover County Court. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Folks, the sad truth of it is most of what we're seeing in the news cycle is just noise, and it's recycled noise at that. Nothing informative, nothing that actually helps us discern the times that we live in. That's why we started doing Heard Tell. Every morning right here on Big Talker Network, 7 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m., we talk and discuss the issues of the day, culture and politics with knowledgeable guests, no yelling, no caterwauling, just grown folk talk about the issues that matter. Join me, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning for Heard Tell.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hey, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. Oh, look at that. I got it to work. It's amazing. It's a Wednesday. It's a Riverwatch Wednesday. We'll have our guest, Dr. Larry Cahoon from the Cape Fear Riverwatch organization. Also, Dan Roman from Full Circle Fitness in the Monkey Junction area. And, of course, we'll fill you in on some of the other fun stuff coming up in the future. But right now, it's time for the Asylum, which you can listen to while you're perusing the Big Talker website at bigtalker.live. Download the app for Android and iOS devices. It's amazing. It's a way of life. You'll love it, I promise. As of this morning, it's weird. I don't even know if I'm going to say this right, but I think I'm a published writer. I wrote a column. I wrote a rant. Basically a distillation of yesterday's show, and it's been published on Ordinary-Times, and I'm kind of like weird. The last time anything of mine was, quote, published, unquote, we had a school teacher that printed up our poems from the classroom assignment into a little cardboard or construction paper book. And I think it was stitched together with yarn, and it was adorable, and it was a lot of fun, and that was, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 50 years ago, somewhere in there. So now, if you care, yesterday's rant for 2 hours and change is actually available in written form, a little more concise and a little less pedantic. As far as pedantic, does anybody remember Yahoo? Right? We went from, the internet went from nothing to AOL to Yahoo to MySpace to Facebook. And now we have TikTok and OnlyFans and everything else. But anyway, back in the day, Yahoo was the leading portal. That's what they referred to them as a portal. You could get your email and your news all at the same place. Google kind of took that and ran with it. But anyway, apparently Yahoo is still doing stuff. Like, they're still in business. It's really weird. I don't even know if I anyway. Now, how many of you folks are homeowners? Two of you. Okay, two. That's everybody watching. Okay, so you guys have what's called homeowners insurance. Now, much like human body insurance, you have to buy different types of insurance to augment the insurance that's supposed to protect your house. You can have homeowners insurance, but you may have to buy additional flood insurance because the homeowners insurance decided they could make more money by separating the parts of your house. So if it floods, that's a different insurance than if there was a recent incident, I think Friday night or recently anyway. A person driving had a medical condition or situation or emergency occur while driving, and they drove through a nail salon like 2 hours after they had officially, finally grand opening type of thing. Anyway. So, your home is protected from somebody errantly guiding their vehicle through your living room. Right? You may have to have different insurance to cover any hail damage. You have to have a different policy for your home to protect it from hurricanes and other acts of God. So if you want to protect your home, you have to buy homeowners insurance and a lot of it. But what about Skylab? Anybody remember Skylab? And the entire North American continent collectively crapped their pants wondering where this thing was going to hit. Oh, man, it slipped out of orbit. Well, If a satellite falls on your house, space law protects you. Dun da da! Space Force to the rescue! But there are no legal penalties for leaving junk in orbit. This has been an interesting question of mine, and I'm sure Dr. Siegel from NASA, by way of Andrew Donaldson and Ordinary-Times/Hertel, I'm sure is going to weigh in at some point. As I mentioned, this is coming from Yahoo News, written by, and I'm going to ruin this, Timiebi Aganaba, assistant professor of space and society at Arizona State University. I didn't know that was a... Anyway, May 8, 2021, a piece of space junk from a Chinese rocket, imagine that, fell uncontrolled back to Earth and landed in the Indian Ocean near the Maldives a year ago in May a year previous. In May 2020, another Chinese rocket met the same fate, imagine that, when it plummeted out of control into the waters off the West African coast. Nobody knew when or where either of these pieces of China of space junk were going to hit, so it was a relief when neither crashed on land or injured anyone. Divine intervention? No. Physics. Anyway, space debris is any non-functional human-made object in space. Kind of like my hopes and dreams. As a professor of space and society focused on space governance, I've noticed that there are 3 questions the public always asks when falling space debris gets into the news. 1, could this have been prevented? 2, what would have happened if there was damage? And 3, how will new commercial companies be regulated as space activities and launches increase exponentially? For space law to be effective, my God, this feels like dupe, right? The Democratic Order of Planets from Futurama with Zap Brannigan. For space law to be effective, it needs to do 3 things. First, regulation must prevent as many dangerous situations from occurring as possible. Second, there needs to be a way to monitor and enforce compliance. And finally, laws need to lay out a framework for responsibility and liability if things do go wrong. So how do current laws and treaties around space stack up? Yeah, they do okay, but interestingly, looking at environmental law here on Earth may give some ideas on how to improve the current legal regime with respect to space debris. Now, what if China lands on your house? I mean, a piece of China junk, rocket junk, falls on your house. Imagine that. Instead of landing in the ocean, the recent Chinese rocket crashed right into your house while you're at work. What would the current law allow you to do? According to the 1967 Outer Space Treaty and 1972 Liability Convention, both adopted by the United Nations, this would be a government-to-government issue. Okay, the United Nations has their own issues going on, so, Security Council, da-da-da. So, in the 21st century, this may be a slightly different conversation. I mean, how do we know that space junk from a Chinese rocket isn't an actual clandestine spy operative invasion of our sovereign territory? We don't know. Or it could just be, a 2-ton panel that slams right into your house and kills your family pet. Well, anyway, the laws written in 1967 and 1972, back in the 20th century, when everything was still operated by tubes and calculators and really bright LED watches had yet to be invented. Everybody is still using curly coil cords to talk on the phone so that they can go from room to room, and you can only go as far as the cable. So, putting that in mind, these laws were written in 1967, right, when Outer Limits was one of the leading sci-fi shows. And 1972, right, Star Trek is moving on. Anyway, and both adopted by United Nations, which is, as we have discovered, is incredibly ineffective at doing a damn thing. Anyway, the treaties declare that states are internationally responsible and liable for any damage caused by a spacecraft, even if the damage was caused by a private company from that state. According to these laws, your country wouldn't even need to prove that someone had done something wrong if a space object or its component parts caused damage on the surface of the Earth or to normal aircraft in flight. That is, basically, if a piece of space junk from China landed on your house, your own country's government would make a claim for compensation through diplomatic channels, then pay you if they choose to make the claim at all. So if you are of no value to the government, they will probably not claim. While the chances are slim to none that a broken satellite would land on your house, space debris has crashed onto land. Back in 1978, the Soviet Cosmos 954 satellite fell into a barren region of Canada's Northwest Territories. When it crashed, it spread radioactive debris from its onboard nuclear reactor over a wide swath of land. A joint Canadian-American team began a cleanup effort that cost over $5 million US. The Canadians requested that money from the Soviet Union, but the Soviets paid only a few million in the final settlement. This was the first and only time the liability convention has been used. Imagine Russia skating on their shit, on their damage, on their radioactive spill. Just like Chernobyl. First they're going to ruin it by not paying attention, and then they're going to blow it up during the invasion of Ukraine. The Russian education system is obviously on par with North Korea. And imagine that they would do this type of thing. Oh, look, we just lost an entire nuclear reactor in your backyard. Sorry. Here's $5. Go get you some popcorn. I mean, it doesn't say how much was paid in the final settlement, but it was less than what was required to pay for the cleanup. So, yeah. I don't know why anybody's tolerating Russia's BS right now. Anyway. This is the first and only time the liability convention has been used when a spacecraft from one country has crashed in another. When the liability convention was put into use in this context, 4 governing norms emerged. Countries have a duty to A, warn other governments about debris, 2, provide any information they could about an impending crash, 3, clean up any damage caused by the craft, and 4, compensate your government for any injuries that may have resulted. There have been other instances where space junk has crashed back to Earth, most notably when Skylab, a U.S. space station, fell and broke up over the Indian Ocean and uninhabited parts of Western Australia. In 1979, a local government jokingly fined NASA $1 for littering, a fine that NASA ignored, though it was eventually paid by an American radio host in 2009. American radio host to the rescue. I should send him $1. Actually, due to inflation, I guess I need to send him $2.50. But despite this and other instances, Canada remains the only country to put the liability convention to use, and boy, were they railroaded by Russia. I mean, if Russia was a neighbor in my neighborhood, was like a person living in my neighborhood, I won't even go there, never mind. However, if you owned a small orbiting satellite that got hit by a piece of space junk, you and your government would have to prove who was at fault. Currently, though, there is no globally coordinated space traffic management system. With tens of thousands of tracked pieces of debris in orbit and multitudes of smaller untrackable pieces, figuring out what destroyed your satellite would be a very difficult thing to do. Which is why there are people like Dr. Mike Siegel on the planet Michael Siegel. Anyway, we are humans. We are undefeated. We are some of the biggest jackholes ever to grace the universe. Our trash is scattered throughout the solar system and beyond. Imagine that. I mean, trash doesn't have to necessarily be a candy wrapper or an empty beer can. I mean, a $500,000, or I don't know how much Skylab was, but apparently that's trash, right? It was just litter, debris. So we just send our trash out into space and stamp our happy little flag right on there. Yeah, this trash proudly made in America. Of course, if it's China, it's going to fall back into Earth and, or if it's Russian, it's going to fall back to Earth and irradiate things. But hey, I think Russia is just trying to share the red forest with the rest of the world, right? They have this massive red forest as a result of Chernobyl, the uninhabitable zone, and I think they want to. I think they feel like they're unique and need to share that, so they want to irradiate the rest of the planet, so that the rest of the planet has red forests as well. So this next section is titled "Space Pollution is the Bigger Problem." No, humans are the bigger problem. Because none of this crap would even exist if it wasn't for us, our arrogance, and basically being entitled jerks. Anyway, current space law has worked so far because the issues have been few and far between and have been dealt with diplomatically. As more and more spacecraft take flight, the risks to property or life will inevitably increase, and the liability convention may get more use. But risks to life and property are not the only concerns about a busy sky. While launch providers, satellite operators, and insurance companies care about the problem of space debris for its effect on space operations, space sustainability advocates argue that the environment of space has value itself and faces a much greater risk of harm than individuals on Earth. The environment of space has value itself. Kind of like the highway between cities that are littered, I should say, with roadside signs advertising cheap fried fish and memorabilia from your trip to the beach. Right? I mean, how many Wings billboards do you see? How many Eat at Joe's billboards do you see? Right? Mobile Marine. Oh, just everywhere. So imagine flying through space is going to be like watching, Ghost in the Shell, where they have these holographic, 500, 700 foot tall holograms being projected into space. Futurama has it as well. Anyway. And faces a much greater risk of harm to the environment of space than individuals on Earth. We could actually live without satellites. We might have to figure out how to use a compass and a map again, right? And some of our phone calls are going to get expensive because they're going to get routed through copper here on Earth. But for real, we don't need satellites. We did fine for, several thousand years without them. So, anyway, the mainstream view is that degrading the environment on Earth through pollution or mismanagement is bad because of its negative impact on the environment or living beings. That's why we have Dr. Cahoon on. The same is true for space, even if there is no clear direct victim or physical harm. In the Cosmos 954 settlement, the Canadians claimed that since the Soviet satellite deposited hazardous radioactive debris in Canadian territory, this constituted damage to property within the meaning of the liability convention. Yeah. The red forest, this might be the red pond, but you get the idea. But as Article 2 of the Outer Space Treaty, it hurts to say this, Outer Space Treaty, declares that no state can own outer space or celestial bodies. It is not clear whether this interpretation would apply in the event of harm to objects in space. Space is shaping up to be a new frontier. Wait, didn't Gene Roddenberry say that? Or was it? The Cosmos guy. I can see Carl Sagan. Maybe he's, I don't know. Space is shaping up to be a new frontier on which the tragedy of the commons can play out. Removing from orbit existing large objects that could collide with one another would be a great place for governments to start. But if the United Nations or governments agreed to laws, if they agreed to laws, we wouldn't be invading Ukraine right now. But that's okay. If they agreed on laws that define legal consequences for creating space debris in the first place and punishment for not following best practices, this could help mitigate future pollution of the space environment. Such laws would not need to be invented from scratch. The 2007 United Nations Space Debris Mitigation Guidelines already address the issue of debris prevention. While some countries have transferred these guidelines into national regulations, worldwide implementation is still pending, and there are no legal consequences for non-compliance. Imagine that. You're not going to punish me, then I'm not going to do it, says Russia. Oh, look, he gets a whole nother country for a couple of $2 sanctions. How would you do that in space? Right? Like, you in America, on Earth, rather, there are places that you can't fly your airplane, whether you're commercial or military. You just can't, right? That airspace is closed. You can't really close space. And how would you enforce it? Anyway, just stuff to think about on a Wednesday. The chances of a person being killed by a falling satellite are close to zero. On the off chance it does happen, current space law provides a pretty good framework for dealing with such an event, unless it's Russia, in which case they're just screw you. But just like during the early 20th century on Earth, current laws are focusing on the individual and ignoring the bigger picture of the environment, albeit a cold, dark, and unfamiliar one. Adapting and enforcing space law so that it prevents and deters actors from polluting the space environment and holds them accountable if they break these laws could help avoid a trash-filled sky. I doubt it. I doubt it. We can't even put trash in the can when we're on the beach. And we've already seen from Russia's involvement that they're obviously not going to play fair, play nice, and play honest. I mean, I'm sorry, if it takes $5.5 million to clean up your mess, you owe me $5.5 million. There is no negotiating. There is no negotiating. $5.5 million. And there should be some sort of recompense, like, we take your car if you don't pay it. Or we foreclose on the Kremlin. That's going to be worth something. With all that crap gold in there. I mean, that's like, oh my God. Did you see that? That's just disgusting. It's enough to make me want to vomit. And I'm not even, ill. But then again, this isn't anything we should expect as a surprise from our friends in Russia. It's what they do. So, if a cosmonaut lands on your house, give it up. Just move. And check your homeowner's policy. Because it may take a little bit more than flood and regular... I mean, would this be considered an act of God for the Russian cosmonaut to land on your house? There are a lot more questions that need to be answered according to the space law as currently enacted by the United Nations. That just does not give me a lot of confidence in the effectiveness of this legislation. So, with that in mind, we're going to take a couple of breaks, or a break, and when we come back, our friend Dan Romand from Full Circle Fitness will be here to remind me of how quickly my brain is decaying due to my luxurious lifestyle. We'll be right back after these messages on the Asylum. Don't go nowhere.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A Wilmington man will be going to prison for at least 15 years after admitting he tried to kill his estranged wife. On January 6th of 2021, witnesses and police say Matthew Stallings kicked down Aline Kinn's door while she ate dinner with their 3-year-old son. Stallings then stabbed her more than 15 times in front of their little boy. Neighbors called 911 and rushed the child away as Stallings beat Kinn, then threw her from a second-floor breezeway to the pavement below. He will spend between 15 and 18 years in prison. Kinn and her son now live in Norway. In Whiteville, police are investigating a shooting Monday night. Officers received a 911 call from the 200 block of Smith Street. When they arrived, they found a victim suffering from a gunshot wound. He was taken to Columbus Regional Medical Center and later to New Hanover Regional. No word yet on the victim's identity. A Wilmington business is boarded up after a freak accident yesterday. The driver crashed through a nail salon. The car crashed through NC Nails on Oleander Drive around 10:30 in the morning. The store had only been open for about an hour. The owner and a customer were hurt and taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say the driver will not face charges. They say he appeared to be experiencing a medical emergency and was not otherwise impaired. That investigation is ongoing. And a case involving a Marine who was shot and killed during a drug deal will be heading back to New Hanover County Court later today. Tyler Greenfield was found guilty of the shooting death of former Marine Robert Scott during a drug deal in 2015. Greenfield was sentenced to life in prison. But in 2020, the North Carolina Supreme Court overturned that first-degree murder charge. Greenfield's retrial will begin later this morning with jury selection in New Hanover County Court. For more on these stories, you can head over to wwaytv3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for another toasty one on the first day of June, marking the start of the hurricane season and meteorological summer. It's certainly going to be feeling like summer with highs climbing into the middle 90s away from the coast. Upper 80s along the immediate coastline. It should stay dry and quiet, but it can't rule out an isolated shower firing up with the sea breeze in the afternoon. As for tonight, mostly clear skies in store for us, and our temperatures fall down to the low to middle 70s, remaining warm and muggy. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
I'm Trey Allen, conservative candidate for the North Carolina Supreme Court. As a Marine Corps veteran, practicing attorney, professor of law, and father of 5, I want to pass on the precious freedoms that we inherited to the next generation. For that to happen, we need judges who will faithfully apply our Constitution and our laws, not rewrite them to achieve specific outcomes. If you share my commitment to liberty, please vote Trey Allen in 2022. Paid for by Trey Allen for Justice.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to the program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
Right.
Hey, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad where crazy is the norm. Which is why we have friends like Dan Romand here from Full Circles Fitness. Welcome to the show.
Hello, TK. How are you today?
I'm up. I'm excited and glad that a Russian or Chinese rocket has not landed on my house, requiring me to buy an additional insurance policy to cover from space debris and Chinese invasions.
I wonder, did they Uber Eats that request to have it delivered? I'm just wondering.
Uber Eats stops at the county line in my neighborhood, so it would have to come from above.
Well, I mean, you said it was nuclear, though, right?
That one was. The Russian satellite that crashed in Canada was nuclear. I think they were trying to share the red forest with the rest of the world.
I was going to say, and, well, you could create power with it, I guess. I don't know.
Imagine the ecotourism you could get from that. I mean, people tour Chernobyl, right, and Fukushima. You could open up this, like, remote red forest in Canada.
At least something to see in Canada, then, right? There's not much up there. I've been there a few times. I actually love Canada.
Oh, look, glowing elk.
Yeah. Wait a minute, you forgot.
Yeah?
You forgot something. You forgot to say A afterward. Glowing elk. A. You got to say that.
Oh, man, that takes me back to Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Yeah, but the sad thing is, you think that's a parody. That's actually how they all talk. I love Canada. I mean, Canadian people are the nicest people I've ever met by a mile.
Which is why they don't have an army.
Yeah, I mean, they are so laid back, wonderful, wonderful people.
Until they talk in French and they know that they can insult you directly to your face and you'll have no clue. Hey, good
problem
to see you.
is-
Wonderful to welcome to
Oh,
Toronto. And then in French, they're like, "What is this cracker doing here?"
Back in the day, though, I was fluent in French. So,
See, I
But-
would not have
but-
had that bad advantage.
fun fact, Quebecese, or however they say it, the French they speak in Quebec is not true French. It's quite a bit different. So
It's
it's hard to
Cajun.
understand. It's
Bayou Cajun like New Orleans.
It kind of sort of is, yeah. But I could pick up enough of the words that I knew when they were trying to insult me, and then I would speak back to them, and the look on their face.
In proper French, like you bastards.
Yeah, and then they knew I was American because only Americans speak proper French, you know. So. But the truth of the matter is, they are wonderful people. We used to do beer runs back when Molson was only available in Canada.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we cross the border, get our Molson, come back. It was great. Never had a problem crossing the border either.
Yeah, because you kept the trunk closed.
Actually, they wouldn't have cared. I was funny because my first wife, her family was from Rouse's Point, New York, which is right on the border. So her aunt's house, the Canadian border, was about 300 yards back. So we could cross into Canada just by walking out her backyard and just walking straight for a little bit.
So if you lost the frisbee, you lost the frisbee.
It went over into Canada.
And you
It
would
was
have to
never a
like hire
problem.
the Canadian Royal Mounted, what are the Canucks?
Yeah, and it was the other funny thing, like you go to cross the border, the woman knew everybody, right? There was one woman in the booth. She knew everybody. You'd cross over. Hey, how you doing? You come back. Hey, what'd you get? Oh, we made a Molson run. Oh, cool. Have fun with it. That was it. You know?
Not today.
And yeah, I doubt that's still available. I'd like to
I
go
need your
find
ID,
out.
your insurance, drop your trowel, spread your cheeks. We're going to inspect.
But even still, getting into Canada is nowhere near as bad as getting back. It's
Well, yeah,
last
because
time-
they don't want you bringing all the Molson.
Well, yeah. Well, it was funny. The last time we went to Canada, so it was about 8-9 years ago. I was rowing. So we went to the World Masters Rowing Championships. Were in Canada. So we're crossing the border from the U.S. into Canada. We pull up to the Canadian booth. You know, the Mountie or whatever he was comes over. Hey, how you doing? You know, in Canadiese, however you say it. And he's like, "You got any fruit in the back?" "Nope, we're good." That's the only thing he asked us, really. Of course,
Good day.
we had cases of bananas in the back, but we didn't tell him that. And couldn't have been nicer. So long story short, we do the regatta. We're coming back. Now, mind you, we're in a van, and on the top of it are 2 rowing shells, which are 27 foot long.
Okay.
We pull up to the U.S. booth. The guy just starts grilling us. Where were you? We were in Lake St. Catherine in Canada. What were you doing there? Yeah, the name of the club is on the side of the van, and there's 2 big rowing shells above there, dude. We were rowing. Well, why were you rowing in Canada? I mean, this literally went on
Because there are no purple hats on aliens in America.
This went on for like a half hour, and there were 7-8 of us in the van,
And a line
and he
growing
grilled-
behind you.
Oh yeah, he grilled every single one of us individually. Where do you live?
Make sure all
We
your
were
stories
from-
matches.
Yeah, we were from Saratoga, New York. So every one of us is given the same answer, and he's not happy with that. He didn't search us. I was waiting for it. But long story short, he let us through after a while. But I'm like, dude, really? You know? And this was like 2013. It's not like it was right after 9/11 or something like that.
Poor bastard was
What?
probably bored, or he had a closed circuit TV.
He just wanted to harass someone that day. And, you know, not to knock Customs and Border Patrol. They're great people. But this guy, whatever it was, he had a bug up his butt that day. And he just decided to take it out on us. And anyway.
He could have used a couple of hours in the gym.
I think one of the people asked him if he ever rode or something like that. I'm not quite sure on that. Because at that point, because I was in the passenger seat up front. You know, and the driver and I are like looking at each other as he's grilling the people in the back, like, really, dude? Come on. But anyway, so I thought we had a good topic I wanted to kind of talk with you about, which is, I don't know if you've seen it on social media. It's starting to make the rounds.
Something about safety in fitness.
Yeah. Yeah. So this woman, and mind you, this happened in like February, but it's starting to go viral now. I guess there was a bunch of people pushing it in March. I didn't see it then, but I've had at least 4 or 5 people asked me about it in the last few days. So this woman was doing squats in a gym in, if I remember right, it was Mexico City. And basically the barbell came down and crushed her neck and killed her. And yeah, so there's actually video out there. I have watched the video.
And can you tell if it was overloaded?
Well, they say she had about 400 pounds.
Good God.
On the bar.
That's like the weight of my entire conscience.
I didn't even know you had one.
That's why we're weighing it now.
Yeah. But really, there was 2 reasons. You know, as a trainer, I look at this. Obviously, I'm appalled, right? There's 2 things that I noticed about it. One, it's not the weight that's the problem. Believe it or not, it's not the weight. Her form was atrocious. Looking at her form and the way she was going about it was...
Did she look like a drunk chick at a wedding trying to do the cha-cha?
Not necessarily. I actually think she kind of knew what she was doing, but her mind just left her at that point. And that's all it takes is one slip.
Yep.
The other thing, and this is a big one, is she was using what's known as a Smith machine. So what it is, a Smith machine, and I'm going to try and keep this as simple as I can, is you'll see them at a lot of the bigger box gyms. That purple and gold one that I really don't think much of. Sorry. Yeah, they have them, and they think that make them safer. Actually, Smith machines, they do have their place, by the way. I've used them for training people many times, but they lock you into a position. So with a Smith machine, if you ever know what a regular squat rack is, you've mentioned you've lifted in the past. You go up under the bar, you lift it up, you step back, you do your squat, you step back, you come back up, step forward, and put it back in the rack. A Smith machine doesn't allow you to do that. It locks you in one place. So you have no wiggle room.
And you have nowhere to drop the weight if you need to.
No, and there you go. You just nailed what I was going to say. So if you're doing a regular squat on a squat rack and you start failing, which
you can just tip forward.
All of us, you either throw the bar forward or more likely throw it backwards and it's off your back. The Smith machine that she was using, she's locked in. She had no way to dump that bar. That's the real reason she died. People are quibbling about it. They're saying it's too much weight. It's not too much weight. Now I'm assuming, she was working up to that weight. She just wasn't somebody who stepped in the gym and decided to do a 400-pound squat day one.
That would be me.
Come on. Yeah, that would be you, would it?
Spot me, would
400 pounds on your back? I've seen you, my friend.
Yeah, spot me.
That would put you at world record.
Actually, that would probably put me in a wheelchair.
Well, you could get down. Getting back up, probably not. But
yeah, I'd be like Pancake at that point. And I remember that from high school where the kids are trying to do bench presses, and they end up dropping it on their chest.
Yep.
Right, and they're trying to bounce it like they're Mr. Bear or something, and then on that 4th rep, and it's just not in there. The tries and the buys are just not there, and you hear that weird gurgling, choking sound.
Well, yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the bench press is the most likely way that someone would die in a gym.
That's
and it's not so much the weight. Now, obviously, if you overload the bar, that's part of it, but it's really a form thing. So if you're doing a proper bench press, the bar should be across your chest, which is your nipple line, not over your throat. But what probably, I'm guesstimating, but probably 75-80% of the people I see lifting using a bench press, that barbell is over their throat. And that's what, when you fail, you mentioned it comes right down on your throat. That's what kills people. Squats, it's very rare.
I was going to say, so maybe I don't understand how they attach weights in the Smith machine, but like it's hard for me to watch Olympic wrestling or Olympic lifting, but it seems like the bar, the weights they have on it, when the bar lands, there's enough room to get your head out from under the bar.
There is. So if proper form, and one of the things like when we teach our clients is how to bail out, I call it. Right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I teach them. Yeah, first I teach them form. Here's what you're going to do. Oh, by the way, before you touch the barbell and lift it, we're going to talk about what you're going to do if you get into trouble. So, for example, on a deadlift, it's literally drop the bar and throw it forward. On a squat, I show them different things, but if it's on your back, you're squatting down and you fail, one of the options is throw the bar back. Just dump it. On the bench press, really you need a spotter, but let's say you don't have one. Or you can't get one. And by the way, if you're in a gym and you're looking for a spotter, go see the staff. Most of them are more than willing to help spot you. Or
because it reduces their liability.
Well, hello, yeah. Now that purple and gold gym, they probably won't spot you. Just saying, because
they can't.
They can't. Well, I was trying to be polite with it. They're too busy handing out the pizza and bagels. I really shouldn't be doing this, but anyway.
That alarm.
If you're in a gym and there's, people are afraid to go up to someone else because, oh my God, you'll think you're hitting on them. No, all right. Just say, hey, dude, can you help me out here? I need a spot. And I will tell you, in my 50 years in gyms, I have very rarely said to someone that I can't spot them. And it's usually because I'm like right in the middle of my set. I said, if you give me a few minutes, I can spot you. I've never said to anyone flat out no. I might say, hey, can you wait a little bit or something like that. And then conversely, when I've asked someone, there's very, very few times I've had someone say to me, no, I won't spot you. And again, it's usually for the same reason. Sometimes, like, if I'm in my zone lifting, sometimes I just don't want to be bothered. But I'll say to them, hey, let me finish my sets, or, let me finish this exercise. I'll come over at that point.
Right.
And again, the staff is always willing to, when I was at the Y and working at the Y, very few people asked me to spot, but I loved it. Right. And then the other side of it, though, to be fair, is knowing how to spot correctly, which most people don't do. You're a guy. So did anyone ever spot you on the bench press?
Oh, yeah.
When you did it?
Oh, yeah.
So how did they stand?
Directly over me.
Yeah. So what's in your face?
Actually, they were polite enough to stand far enough back that they were in like curl position.
But that's wrong. So if they're standing,
it should be one on either side.
That far back, right? If they're standing that far back and you fail holding the bar and they go to grab it, like you said, in a curl position, that bar is going to pull their back and they're going to injure their back.
He stepped in, like he would step forward. Only because of the attire that the high schools were
doing.
Giving.
But most people wouldn't step forward. I've seen that many times where the spotter's too far back because they don't want their gonads.
I tell you what, the high school gym is probably more progressive when it comes to that, because we are far less ashamed or embarrassed. Right? We have no qualms with saying, "Yo,
we don't care.
Yo, step back, yo. I want to see the light."
But the thing is, you can be up close to the bar. What I normally do is I stand slightly diagonal. So I have one foot near their head, but it's back, and then my other foot's forward. So I'm not leaning forward to have to grab the bar. I'm actually very much above the bar. And then I don't have to worry about if they can't handle it. I'm not going to hurt my back, because I've had positions where and it's my own fault, right? And that's the thing, kind of to circle and put this all together, is when people get injured at the gym, it's usually one of two things. It's almost always bad form. But then the other thing is they're not paying attention. I don't know how other way to put it. They don't focus.
It's kind of like me when I walk in, did this on the road, walk into the hotel's little fitness room thing, which, smells like gym socks.
Every one of them does, don't they?
Yeah, and why is it? So
they all have equipment from the 70s,
right? And it's all set up in a way that it seems logical. Like you could just walk up and start doing your thing, having never read a book, or there are no instructions other than please wipe up after you leave because nobody wants, or things like that,
which they don't do,
right? But the machine itself is like, oh, this weird contraption which looks like something out of 50 Shades of Grey. This is how you do weights this way, But there's no real instruction in my earlier comment about not being able to watch Olympic weightlifting because, and I think I was 11 or 12 years old, and the guy was doing, what's the snatch, grab, lift thing? What's that
Well, there's
called?
the snatch, there's the clean and jerk.
The one over your head, the really...
That's the clean. Yeah, you're probably talking about the clean and jerk.
And the dude's
The
leg...
snatch is also overhead, so...
The dude's leg snapped.
Oh, many times I've seen
that. I have never puked from seeing something like that in my life, and ever since then, I don't do that.
Well,
now,
not this past Summer Olympics. The one before that, when it was in, I think it was Rio. If I remember right, the guy was Iranian, and he went to do the clean and jerk, and his knee blew out in the middle of it.
Oh.
And I was actually watching it live, and I went, "Oh, dude!" And he had hundreds of pounds on the bar, but in his case, I kind of looked at it and watched it, and of course they're trying to get ratings, so they do it in slow motion. Right? Gore sells, right?
Oh.
And really, what it was, the reason it happened was he misstepped.
Oh,
so
man.
when you bring it up to your chest and you go to press it overhead, when he kind of jump back is what you do. You step back, jump back. When he did that, his back foot slipped, and that's what did it. So I was like, "Oh, dude!" Now I don't know if that video's still out there. It was on YouTube 5-6 years ago, whatever it was. But I wouldn't recommend going and watching that because it was pretty bad.
But that leads into a series of questions.
Shoot, go ahead.
The bones in our body are made of a component called calcium.
Correct.
And when you bind this stuff together, it holds together. It's a pretty damn strong bond. Otherwise, we would be unable to throw baseballs at 100 miles an hour, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
At what obviously, form prevents things like your entire leg going. Because the dude's done. He's never going to lift weights like that again. Certainly not at this level.
Probably not.
Not at this level.
Probably
his
not.
Olympics
it's very
are
slim
over.
Chance. Right.
So,
but that's not his bones. That's his tendons.
Oh, okay. So the bones might be able to handle.
The bones
that's my
might
question.
be able to handle. I'm guessing. I'm making an educated guess here that more like the guy I saw. It was he blew his ACL and MCL right out. That's what it was. But to your point, yeah, they can be repaired. I mean, medicine is amazing these days. And they'll say in some cases, like baseball pitchers, when they get the Tommy John surgery, they come back stronger. And I don't disagree with that. But once you blow a knee out, and I've blown my knee out, it never gets fully recovered. So you're right. He's not going back to that Olympic lifting level, at least not that level.
But is there a limit of like bone snappage? Because like in martial arts, they have a correlation between the thickness of the board you're breaking with your foot or your hand or whatever, and the thickness of the board relates to different bones in the body. Like the thinner boards are your fingers, the slightly larger ones are like your hand, the bigger ones are your arm, and the really big ones are like your legs. Right? So there's sort of this graduating scale that if you see a black belt kick through a 3-inch piece of wood, you know he could empty your skull in one shot.
Right.
When lifting weights, is there any sort of relationship between what can cause damage so that you don't get there, right? Like, if your knees can actually handle 400 pounds in addition to the body weight you're carrying anyway, with proper form, at what point does the bone itself, I mean, is that a risk, or is it still all in the soft tissue, the tendons, the
bigger risk? There is a risk. I don't want to say there's not, but the bigger risk, you're right, is the tendons. Most likely, could be muscle tears even too. So the bones are so strong. And here's the thing: when you're lifting heavy, what actually happens as you work up to it is your bones get even stronger. They get more dense.
Really?
If you look at so like this past weekend was the world's strongest man competition, and one of the people in that, his name is Brian Shaw. He's won it 4 or 5 times. The dude weighs like 425 pounds.
Good God! So that's already a strain on the pedestal, as it were.
Oh, it is. But it was funny because he does a ton of YouTube videos, and I want to say a year and a half or so ago, he did one where he went and got his bone density tested.
Wow.
And his bones are basically concrete. I mean, his bones are so strong, it didn't even register on the charts they had. So that's why he can lift 800, 900, 1,200 pounds, right? Without having his bones snap. So as you get stronger, your bones will naturally get stronger also. So the risk of them snapping, I'm not going to say it's not there. It absolutely is. But it's not what you might think it is. Your tendons and all that, those, by the way, also get stronger as you lift more. That's why I talk so much with people that you've got to strength train, you've got to resistance train, because if you don't, those tendons, those joints, those bones, all of that just get weaker and weaker. So we talk about, when you're 70 years old, that stereotypical frail man or woman walking around, they've lost their muscle mass, they've lost their bone density, they've lost the joint and tendon mobility, flexibility, and strength. So that's, I've fallen and I can't get up. Right?
But they do have the AARP discount card for the Golden Corral. So they can eat all the chocolate fountain crap they want, which I'm sure adds to this.
And the free donut every day at Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme, right?
Yeah.
But that's why I push strength training so much, and it is the thing that anyone should be doing. If you're going to work out, you need to be strength training first, because it has nothing to do with appearance. Who cares? It has to do with keeping your bones strong. It has to do with keeping the muscles strong, the joints, tendons. You're going to have less pain, aches and pains day to day if you strength train. Cardio's not going to do that. Cardio, you could run all day long. It's going to put tension on your joints more than it's going to help them.
Shin splints, all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying don't run. If you like to run, go run. But you've got to incorporate strength training. And then the other side of it is you got to know what you're doing, right? So I will tell you, TK, I've trained thousands of people. I would say, in my personal experience, less than 5% knew how to do a squat properly when I started working with them. I still don't, because just bending down to pick up a sock in my bedroom is enough to send me into the floor.
It's funny you mentioned that. One of the things I'm working on is I'm going to be putting a video I'm going to put up on YouTube of translating an exercise to a day-to-day life. So a squat would be bending down to pick up, say, a laundry basket.
If you really need it. That's where I'm at. I really don't need that. I can wait until somebody comes along that's more flexible than I. Hey, do me a favor. And the closer to the ground it is, the less I need it.
What about getting out of a chair?
Well, don't get in the chair.
Yeah. See, I love it when doctors tell people you should never squat again. It's bad for your knees. And I'm like, so doc, and I actually did this with one doctor. I said, so doc, what you're telling me is I should not sit down in a chair. And she looked at me and I said, how's that any different than a squat? And I could see her brain just starting to explode. She finally said, yeah, you're right. And I went, yeah, I am. And I have a great relationship with her, but it was just kind of funny that even someone as well trained as she is, and she's an excellent doctor, but she didn't make that correlation, right, to how different exercises translate to day-to-day life. So it kind of opened her eyes, and that's one of the reasons I want to do that video, is because getting out of a car, getting in and out of a car, a lower car, now if you're on a lifted truck that's 15 feet in the air, then you're climbing up. That's a different exercise, right? That's box jumps. But you can translate all this stuff to regular types of exercise. And again, you've got to be smart. If you're doing 400-pound squats, you should not be in a Smith machine. You should have spotters, unless you know you can handle. I can do 400-pound squats, and I don't need a spotter for that. 500, I'm looking for a spotter. Or I'm making sure that I have safety rails or something like that, so that if I do get into trouble, I'm safe.
Right.
The problem is people don't know how to stay safe. That's the first thing. Hire a trainer. People say, oh, trainers are so expensive. What are they going to do? They're going to keep you safe, first of all. A quality trainer, the first thing they're going to do when they're teaching you an exercise, well, the second thing. First thing is going to be teach you form. Second is going to, as part of it, so 1 and 1A, is teach you how to stay safe and how to bail on an exercise. We talked about bench presses. Normally, you want to clip in your weights, but if you're alone, there's nobody else around. If you clip in your weights and that bar ends up on your throat, you're screwed, right? So if I'm lifting on my own and I'm doing a bench press, I won't clip the weights in because then I can just dump the bar.
Right. One side or the other.
Yes. Is that ideal? No, it's not. Is it proper form? Technically, no. But I'm safe and I'm not going to die if that bar comes down. And that's the key thing. It's making mistakes, losing focus, that type of thing that you've got to just be aware of.
Okay, one more question.
Shoot.
How early in a person's life should physical education and training be introduced?
Birth.
Because I will say in the first grade, my
Yep.
first day, or wasn't the first day, but we had a teacher come in like during the first week of I think it was first grade, and the principal was explaining how important physical education was. And of course, a bunch of 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds have no clue. And he made an example of drawing a line on the chalkboard in our classroom. And he said, right now, your muscles and your coordination will not allow you to draw as straight of a line as you would like. The more you understand, work, and communicate with your body, this is physical education, you become more capable of drawing or communicating the coordination, right? Being able to do things like make coffee and make stuff, do stuff with less mess, with less problem, less injury, greater efficiency, et cetera, that I don't know that any of that is ever introduced or conveyed to people in gyms.
To answer your question, and to kind of go with what you're talking about is, I was joking with birth, but here's a thought. The Russians and the Chinese will pull kids at 3 and 4 years old and start training them for the Olympics for the reasons you're talking about, right? The earlier you start, the better you're going to be at something. Now, for example, they're training a weightlifter or a skater or a swimmer, all right? Most of us, we're not going to be Olympics swimmers. I wish, right? But to your point, the earlier you can start a child in some form of exercise, one, it is going to help their coordination. It's going to help their growth. It's going to make them stronger, and so on and so forth. There's all the biological reasons I'll go with. There's also the mental reasons, right? One of the things that I don't think many people realize is gym time is clear your mind time. At least it is for most of my clients. Probably the biggest thing they say. I like coming to the gym because it's just my time for an hour. Same thing with me when I'm working out. It gets rid of the stress. It gets rid of all that crap that's in your brain. So that's a factor also. It also, the earlier you start, and studies have shown this, the more likely you're going to do it throughout your life, right? So if you've never worked out, if you did PE, let's say in grade school, and then that was it, the odds of you working out in your 20s, 30s, and 40s are much lower than someone who's done it their whole life, like, say, for example, myself.
Right.
So it's just, you got to be age appropriate with the exercises. You're not going to take a 5-year-old and hand them a barbell.
Right. That's what the idea with, like, because we were I don't want to say railing against, but certainly in less than amicable towards the square dancing aspects of physical education.
That was one I had to touch a girl at 11 years old. It was disgusting. And it was Kelly Pelton too, because it was funny because Kelly and I started kindergarten together. We graduated high school together. Hey, Kelly, if you're ever listening to this. But because she was right before me in the alphabetical, we sat next to each other all through school and all that. And I had to touch her. Ugh. I remember at 11 years old doing that damn square dancing. I gotta touch a girl, but.
And then you realize that everything in the school has been touched by other girls. Like when the rubber bouncy ball for dodgeball, right? It's like,
dodgeball. Oh, we love dodgeball, and see, dodgeball's banned now.
Is it?
But yeah, it's too aggressive, so they're removing it from schools.
So what's football?
And it's. Yeah, well, they're trying to go to touch football now. Having played football for decades, I can tell you, I don't disagree with some of the thoughts. I don't think 8-year-olds at this point should be playing tackle football. There's
Oh,
better
come on. A
options.
good concussion at an early age can only lead to good things.
Well, that's the reason I say that is because I started young, and I've had, that I know of, at least 6 concussions from playing football.
Good God.
One of which, just not to get too far off track, but I played a game. The second play, this guy leveled me, and I mean he decleated me, meaning he knocked me up in the air. He got me good. I give him all the credit in the world. I was carried off the field. They gave me smelling salts, and I went back on the field like 2 plays later. I had the game of my life, and I don't remember 1 second of it other than him decleating me. I had a concussion. There's no question in my mind. It was never diagnosed, but there's no question in my mind that I had a concussion.
That's what those little stars in the periphery of your vision was about.
Well, and I think it's showing up a little bit now. And I'm not by any means saying that what I experience is anything to the depth of, say, an NFL player. But, better to kind of go a little easier on the young ones. Once you're in middle school, high school, okay, full contact.
Now your body's starting to get...
Yes.
Now you're strength training. Now you're actually feeding your body what it needs to respond to this type of environment.
Correct. Plus, obviously the hormones are kicking in at that age, which is going to make your body naturally stronger anyway. 8, 9, 10-year-olds, what they should be teaching them, and when I coached, teach them. That's when you teach them the fundamentals.
Yep, and that's why
here's what the basics, the very basic. It's not about leveling some guy. And there are I saw it in Pop Warner. There were coaches, man. They were teaching 8-year-olds, hey, hit them square up and level the guy. That's not the time for that.
Momentum
I get that.
is moving through an object.
Yes. But again, I think physical fitness, the younger you can get them started, the better. And again, age appropriate, back when you and I were kids, we played, at least I did, hide and seek. That's athletics.
Yeah.
Different form of it, right?
Climbing a tree and falling out of it.
Yeah. Climbing trees, riding bikes, all
chasing
the things.
Butterflies.
Well, I never did that.
Or fireflies, actually, because
fireflies. Yes, I'll give you fire. They don't. I've not seen a firefly.
Not in decades.
Are they even around anymore? But finding something age appropriate, and then you should be doing it with your kids. That's the other thing I tell parents a lot and grandparents is, why don't you do it with them? Because one, you're getting time together, which is the most important thing I think a parent can and should do. Spend time with your kids. But two, that you're getting exercise as well as the child is, and
together time.
The sad part that I'm seeing in the schools is that they're doing away with PE more and more. They're cutting down the amount of PE. Like when I was in school, we had PE just about every day.
Every day.
It might be square dancing, but you were moving. Now, I know one time I was talking with someone, they were going like once a week for a 45-minute class. And that's just not enough. So it gives kids, I think they are emotionally better, physically, obviously, mentally better if they get that PE time. But unfortunately, the schools are still focused on other things. That's the first thing that
they're concentrating on the funding. PE, other than football, does not bring in the money.
Right. Football is a money raiser. Everything else is an expense.
They spend more money on football than music, but I'm going to stop there because one, it's going to make me very angry. My blood pressure will go up. And two, we're already past the 9 o'clock hour.
Oh, my God. This is flown by. You got to go pay some bills, my friend.
I do. Now, how do people contact you and follow you on the YouTube thingy you have going now?
So on YouTube, we have a podcast every Friday. It's called Living Fit After 50. So if you just look up Living Fit After 50, you'll find us there. You can also follow us on Facebook. We actually have 2 different Facebooks. Living Fit After 50 is one of them, but you can also follow Full Circle Fitness NC, as in North Carolina. Both of them have links to the YouTube. And if you have questions or things you want me to talk about, more than happy to. You can just email me. Best way to do it is the info@livingfitafter50.com. So I love questions, and there are things you and I can talk about when we get those questions.
Yeah, man.
that makes it fun for me. So,
all right. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I have to skip out now, but that
no worries.
That half hour went by really quick.
It flew by.
So with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break and a little news and weather. And when we come back, Dr. Cahoon from the Cape Fear Riverwatch will be joining us. Please don't go nowheres. The Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. I'll be right back.
Keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
This is Radio Free Dixie, and I'm Mark Allen. We often hear people complain about fake news, but fake history is just as bad. The impression that many people have about the Old South is the result of fake history. For example, have you ever wondered why it was okay for 13 American colonies to secede from England, but wrong for 13 Confederate states to secede from the United States? The truth is that both groups had a God-given right to secede and plenty of good reasons for it. If your ancestors fought for Dixie, hold your head high and defend truth and honor. That's what real men do. Join the Confederate Legion, sponsored by the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Go to MakeDixieGreatAgain.com. That's MakeDixieGreatAgain.com.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A Wilmington man will be going to prison for at least 15 years after admitting he tried to kill his estranged wife. On January 6th of 2021, witnesses and police say Matthew Stallings kicked down Aline Kinn's door while she ate dinner with their 3-year-old son. Stallings then stabbed her more than 15 times in front of their little boy. Neighbors called 911 and rushed the child away as Stallings beat Kinn, then threw her from a second-floor breezeway to the pavement below. He will spend between 15 and 18 years in prison. Kinn and her son now live in Norway. In Whiteville, police are investigating a shooting Monday night. Officers received a 911 call from the 200 block Smith Street. When they arrived, they found a victim suffering from a gunshot wound. He was taken to Columbus Regional Medical Center and later to New Hanover Regional. No word yet on the victim's identity. A Wilmington business is boarded up after a freak accident yesterday. A driver crashed through a nail salon. The car crashed through NC Nails on Oleander Drive around 10:30 in the morning. The store had only been open for about an hour. The owner and a customer were hurt and taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say the driver will not face charges. They say he appeared to be experiencing a medical emergency and was not otherwise impaired. That investigation is ongoing. And a case involving a Marine who was shot and killed during a drug deal will be heading back to New Hanover County Court later today. Tyler Greenfield was found guilty of the shooting death of former Marine Robert Scott during a drug deal in 2015. Greenfield was sentenced to life in prison. But in 2020, the North Carolina Supreme Court overturned that first-degree murder charge. Greenfield's retrial will begin later this morning with jury selection in New Hanover County Court. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for another toasty one on the first day of June, marking the start of the hurricane season and meteorological summer. It's certainly going to be feeling like summer with highs climbing into the middle 90s away from the coast. Upper 80s along the immediate coastline. It should stay dry and quiet, but it can't rule out an isolated shower firing up with the sea breeze in the afternoon. As for tonight, mostly clear skies in store for us, and our temperatures fall down to the low to middle 70s, remaining warm and muggy. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Hey, I'm Yael Osowski.
And I'm David Clement.
We're the host of Consumer Choice Radio, broadcasting every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Consumer Choice Radio is a weekly conversation featuring the latest news, interviews, and expert analysis that covers consumer topics from around the world.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Join Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to program whenever you want, however you want, by asking for Big Talker.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, right here on the Big Talker Network. Your place for Southeast North Carolina news, culture, weather, politics, all that good stuff. Please join the website, bigtalker.live. Download the app for Android and iOS devices. You can pair it with your car so that you can, take the Big Talker with you everywhere. And like Andrew Donaldson said in the spot previous, you can even program Siri and Alexa to automatically load the Big Talker so that you can hands-free and make your coffee hands-free, right? So you don't have to worry about the radio. The Big Talker would just be running while you're making your coffee, which is one of the most important aspects of my next guest's daily life. Dr. Cahoon, how are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. As we were joshing about earlier before we went live, I consider myself a caffeine-based life form. So, without it, I'm not nearly as functional as I am, when mainlining the stuff.
So today is a special red letter day. I need to know about this. More people need to know about this because I like this idea.
Right. Today, Cape Fear Riverwatch is sponsoring the very first State of the River Conference. It's downtown at CFCC's Union Station. Of course, I'm not there right now. I'm talking on this show, but we're having a set of speakers to talk about different issues that confront our river, and I emphasize our river because it belongs to the people.
I thought it belonged
to
DuPont.
Anybody else.
Or at least
DuPont
they thought
may
so.
have thought that.
Yeah.
They seem to think so, yeah. They're finding out different. It's not their river, and we're going to take it back from them.
Nice.
So, that's one of the big issues that will be addressed at this conference. And this after lunch, there will be a panel discussion by a set of experts about some of the issues that are raised and addressed in the morning. So the river faces a lot of challenges. Our river, that is.
Facing a lot of challenges
PFAS,
of human beings, I think.
Yeah, there's been a lot of abuse, and that needs to stop and be fixed and cleaned up. In all fairness, DuPont and Chemours are not the only bad guys. They're the headliners right now because of PFAS and what they snuck into the river without our knowledge, and with the connivance of the regulators and state government. I don't think that's too strong a term to use. The regulators and the folks running the government, that is the legislature, were well aware of what was going on, and they didn't stop it. They should have stopped it. If they had followed the law to the letter, they would have put a stop to it. Or
but if
at
they were
least
decent human beings.
Well, that's always true, but yeah.
This is why we can't have anything nice.
Right. Well, it comes down to money, and a lot of these people seem to think they have a decision to make. Am I going to be a decent human and do the right thing,
or am I going to make money?
Get paid for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I going to make money? Yeah. And it's too bad that seems to be the choice they think they have to make. I would argue that in a properly run capitalist society, you internalize all the costs of doing business, and that's reflected in the price of your product and services, right?
And that's all of what's involved, including cleaning up after making it. Like when somebody carves a table, right? They take a slab of wood, they sand it, they carve it, they stain it, they do all this work. When they're done, they don't leave the crap there on the floor.
Right.
They clean it up.
Yeah.
They keep,
They clean it up afterwards. The
factories,
the
right?
cost of the product reflects all that. It costs this much to make it and this much to clean up afterwards. And so that's the real cost of production. Doing what they did, which is to dump their waste products into the river for free. I mean, they don't pay us for the right, or the privilege. There are arguments that, well, in all fairness, they'd pay a disposal fee, but properly speaking, given that the stuff in this case is toxic, the real cost of dumping that stuff in the river is now being charged to utility customers, right? CFPUA has announced a rate increase to pay for cleaning PFAS compounds out of our drinking water supply.
Specifically to pay for that additional carbon-activated filtration system, right?
Granular activated carbon system, or GAC, we call it, GAC. 45 million was the number I've heard for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that.
Because it started at 30 when I started covering it.
Yeah, it's certainly gone up.
And the thing is, it's incomprehensible. Like, if it's $3 or $5, okay, I understand that. That's not a big deal. But when you go from 30 to 50 million, holy crap! You forget what you forget what the million part is.
Right, and that gets shared among us ratepayers. I'm one of them, of course. And now, in fairness, CFPUA and the Brunswick utility folks and Wrightsville Beach are all suing Chemours and DuPont to pay for that, which they properly should. But of course, DuPont and Chemours are fighting that in court, and it's going to drag out for umpty-ump years. Now, what's also worth mentioning today is that a bill has been introduced in our legislature. It's H1095, and I actually have it pulled up on my screen here. H1095, PFAS pollution and polluter liability. Was introduced, I think,
those are some ugly words.
Yes. And there are two major aspects to it. One, actually, they start right off, is to authorize the establishment of PFAS maximum contaminant levels. We call that MCLs, maximum contaminant levels. In other words, to say no more than this amount of this compound and so on by compound would be considered safe to have in drinking water. And that
let's hope that number is 0.
I would be happy with 0. I could accept 0. In fact, the GAC system is capable of knocking down the concentrations of PFAS compounds to below detection limits. And that's somewhere in the single digits of parts per trillion.
Nice.
And so, one argument would be, instead of us paying to clean it out of the river, why don't they pay to clean it out of their effluent before it gets into the river?
What an idea.
There. Oh, they should be using that.
Yeah.
It's established technology. It may not be cheap, but that's their problem. It shouldn't be our problem.
Right. If your Tupperware becomes another $1 expensive as a result of it at the Walmart, so be it.
That's what it costs. That's what it costs to produce it. Right? That's fair. Strictly speaking, that's what a capitalist system should look like. No subsidies, no externalities.
No
Externalities is
superfunds.
a fancy word. Yeah, that's a fancy term for making somebody else pay for the real cost of producing your stuff.
It's like the opposite
So
of entitlement, or is it? Oh, wait, no, that is entitlement.
It's bad. Yeah, it's bad. Externalities are pollution, basically.
Okay.
Harm caused by the production process, et cetera, et cetera. If it really costs X amount to produce it, why should they be allowed to get away with half of X cost and dump the other half of X on us? We're not the consumers of that stuff, not intentionally. Why should we pay for that? It's our river. They shouldn't pollute it. So
it's
we
not.
Can't drink it safely.
It's not a detriment. It's actually like a bonus. It's free. Value added water.
Yeah. Well, you can get cancer for free too, or brain damage. Yeah. Pick your poison, literally.
As long as I can profit on it, have at it.
That seems to be one of their business models there. Yeah. Let's make more profit by polluting somebody else's water, and we'll pretend that everything's fine. Well, that's not going to happen. We're not going to let them get away with it. The other thing that this bill does is that it basically requires the polluters, in this case Chemours and DuPont, however you divide up the responsibility, to pay for the cost of cleaning the stuff up out of our drinking water. So they would have to reimburse CFPUA, Brunswick County Utilities, Wrightsville Beach, and so forth for what they've had to shell out up front to protect their customers from PFAS pollution. And that would short-circuit this long legal lawsuit process and basically say, never mind all that, you're going to pay for it. You put it there, you're going to be made to clean it up and pay for that. So there you have it.
Is this a good midway point? Like, if obviously we can't get an indictment, but if they agree to pay, we can stop hounding them.
I would argue that their continual discharge of these things is still a problem, and that's an elaborate set of things we got to think about. But what we've done so far with the consent agreement, the consent order, they've been required to stop discharging into the river directly. They're not allowed to do that at all. They're being required to clean up their groundwater contamination at the site. And this is the commercials about the wall that they're building, right?
Right.
They're not doing that voluntarily. They're being required to do that by an addendum to the consent agreement. They have to do it. The judge said so. And whatever it costs is, well, that's too bad, guys. You shouldn't have done it in the first place. They're still generating effluents, air emissions and such that contain PFAS. They're knocked down to a lower level, but they're still not zero. There should be zero emissions. But if we can make them pay to clean up our drinking water supply instead of us paying for it, instead of having us do it, that's a big step forward.
Yeah.
And establishing maximum contaminant levels would have the effect of saying, all right, this is the level at which we consider all of this stuff to be safe. And, I'm here to tell you that's going to be a pretty low number.
Okay.
The
Fair
science,
enough.
as it's coming along, is showing that lower and lower and lower numbers of PFAS compounds can be considered safe. The numbers we had way back when were inadequate to protect public health. When we look to protect public health, we have learned you can't consider all humans to be alike. I think I've mentioned this before on the show. We do our best job of protecting the most vulnerable members of the population, and that would be women of childbearing age, fetuses and newborns and small children. They are the most vulnerable to the harms from these kinds of pollutants. And so the standard should be based on the most vulnerable members of the population. So, if the bill goes through as written,
okay,
and they don't put too many loopholes in it,
or add pork belly,
yeah, right. I think it represents a really good set of steps forward. It certainly takes this lawsuit business of having to sue the polluters to make them pay for the cleanup more or less off the table, and that's important because the timeline there is otherwise a decade or more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the lawsuits have been in progress for a couple of years already, and where are we? Well, we're stuck somewhere. And,
well, the lawyers are
the
loving
other
it.
side, oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah, of course.
But the people are still drinking PFAS because the lawyers are making the money and nothing is happening.
That's right. Yeah, we're the ones getting the shaft here.
So the you said H1095?
H for House 1095. And
now,
you can Google that bill. It'll pull it right up. I've got it right in front of me here as written.
And it's currently in the House to be voted on.
Yeah.
What can the people like me do? Can we start calling Rouser and saying, "Hey"?
Rouser's not the guy. He's our federal congressman. This is a state legislature.
All right. So who are these?
I should have said that. Yeah, state legislature. Yeah.
You didn't need to. I'm just that stupid. I really don't understand the two groups and who's where.
Well, it's important to clarify that. Yeah, this is our state reps and state senators who should be contacted and told, yeah, you better go for this. And, obviously our local representatives would be all in favor of this. I can't imagine any of them being opposed.
We did not return an indictment. Do not hold out the hope you do not have in your hand.
Yeah, I would sincerely hope that our entire local delegation would be in support. Because if I read the tea leaves right, they all drink that water too, and they're all paying bills to the utility. And they certainly understand how, the vast majority of us would feel about that. What I would do is encourage people to contact other state reps. You may not represent me, but, boy, oh boy, is this important. And you wouldn't want this to happen to your constituents now, would you?
Or ask him, do you drink tap water or do you drink bottled water, and why?
Yeah.
But you can afford it. I cannot. Now, tell me, are you going to buy my bottled water, or are you going to vote for this bill?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Everyone has skin in the game. If this bill goes through, then conceivably it applies. I mean, it's written about PFAS pollution. There are other sources of PFAS throughout the state. And so, it could apply more broadly. It depends on the final wording and so forth and so on. But, it represents an important step forward. The concept of holding polluters responsible for cleaning up their mess shouldn't be rocket science, right?
It actually sounds like a conservative value.
I would think so.
But what do I know?
To me, it's proper behavior. It's respect for others. It's respect for property rights.
These are all foreign concepts.
Yeah, the river is our property. Who gave anyone else the right to pollute it so that we can't use it? If people dumped radioactive crap on your backyard and thereby, compromised your health and safety, and the value of your property and your ability to use it, you would be upset over that. It might take sophisticated instrumentation to find that stuff, which is the case with PFAS. How would you know it's there? Well, it takes, GC mass spec, right? Not everybody has one. Yeah.
I was a tech in a lab, and they would bring me samples that I would burn up in my mass spec and tell you what was in it.
There you go.
It was one of the coolest jobs I ever had. Now, the scenario you're describing has actually happened.
Right.
A Russian satellite that was nuclear-powered crashed into northern Canada.
I remember that.
And everybody in Canada and America came out and was like, oh, crap, Red Forest, let's take care of this at a cost of about $5.5 million. They looked at Russia using the space law, which it hurts coming out of my mouth. And they said, Russia, you owe us $5.5 million for the cleanup, and they basically gave us a middle finger and a $50 bill and walked off. So...
Yeah, well, that was the Russians.
There's not a lot of, I don't personally, because I am now so cynical and jaded that I do not hold out hope for any sort of, what are they going to do, spank them if they don't? What are they, what are you going to do? They're the biggest, they're like one of the biggest monies in town.
You talking about Russia, or are you talking about Chemours?
Chemours in this parallel. I mean, because they're making their money around the world. But they're damaging our little neighborhood.
Well, we have leverage over them. They have permits to discharge stuff, and those permits can be revoked.
But what's that going to do?
And that would put them out of business. That would put them out of business.
Well, revoking is one thing. It's kind of like it's kind of like Madison Cawthorn. They took away his license, but he kept driving. You feel me? I mean, how the hell? How?
Well, yeah, and he got caught twice carrying a loaded gun into an airport, and they wrote him a ticket for each time he did that.
And he did it again. So there's not a lot of incentive in the behavior of our own representatives. That how do we translate?
I'm a big fan of let the punishment fit the crime, and you put people like that in jail, the Crowbar Hotel. And with a big company like that defies the state, you can shut them down. Judges can do that. The way that permits are written, and I'll get into the formal stuff here. Permits to discharge carry several different levels of penalties. You get a notice of violation if you screw up. And the notice of violation often comes with a fine for the cost of dealing with the problem and as a penalty. And the intent is to get your attention and to make you stop doing it. Well, if you keep doing it, a judge can order an injunction to make you stop. If you defy an injunction, the judge can then order the operation shut down altogether. The ultimate penalty for environmental discharge permits is to revoke the permit. In other words, you're not allowed to do that, and that shuts down the business. And there, of course, there are many other permits under which a large industrial operation would operate. So there are a lot of different ways to say, hey, you're done. I mean, ultimately, a judge could order the company held in contempt and put the CEO in jail.
Ooh,
stuff like that. Yeah,
this is one of those dreams I'd love to wake up to.
Yeah, we have tools. It's rare that they're used. Most of the time, people see the pathway, and it's like, well, okay, if we continue to defy them, here's what's going to happen. I don't want to go to jail, so let's negotiate. And the lawyers will start jabbering about what can we do, as a compromise.
That's when they really make their money.
Bottom line is, if we tell the Chemours and DuPont people, you have to pay for this, and the authority is written into a statute rather than having to go through a civil trial proceeding, you cut to the chase. You just say, all right, here it is. Here's the bill. You can pay it or we'll shut you down. And if you don't want to pay it, then, certain people will go into the jailhouse for contempt. There are ways. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not familiar with all the ins and outs of these things, but we have ways to make them comply.
Okay. That gives me a little comfort.
And it's only fair. Yeah, it's only fair that they should.
Amen.
You polluted our drinking water, you get to pay to clean it up. It's a very simple concept.
Most 5-year-olds
if I polluted
get that.
my neighbor's property, yeah, right. Clean up your own mess. Don't leave it for others to clean up, and don't cause them harm by making a mess in the first place. It's not just the mess; it's the harm. We're worried about drinking this stuff for many decades and being poisoned by it. Who pays for that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. There is a class action lawsuit underway for that reason. Actual harms to individuals. For example, when the story about Gen X broke in the summer of 2017, it's almost 5 years, hard to believe, some of the local breweries who were using river water for their production found that they could not sell their beer elsewhere. They go to ship their stuff up to Raleigh and whatnot, and the Raleigh folks are saying, this is Cape Fear River water, we're not buying it. That's real harm when you can't sell your product. And we've got, 12 breweries in town, most of them using CFPUA water. Oh, my God. All of a sudden you find out your product's contaminated and you can't sell it.
I mean, this sounds like the issue we've had with lettuce and other products that pop up at like the salad bar.
Yeah, product recall. Well, who pays for that? The producer does. They don't get to sell their product, so they take a big loss.
They have to eat that, as it were.
Yeah. Maybe they had some kind of insurance, in which case their insurance company's going to go after the source of the problem. At a large enough scale, the insurance industry is pretty powerful.
Oh, yeah.
When they haul you into court, you've got a problem. But at the local scale, for individual citizens, I mean, does your health insurance cover PFAS pollution? Well, I don't know.
Well, it might be like the other health insurance. You have to buy a separate policy to cover your eyeballs, a separate policy to cover your water ingestion.
Right. But it pays you only after the harm is done.
Oh, yeah. Now that you have cancer, here's $500,000 to enjoy.
Yeah, right. Oh, great. I get to spend it in a few days before I die. Well, that
or to pay for the very chemo that I'm having to take as a result.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like justice to me. That paying people after the fact of you're harming them by your deliberate actions, that's not enough. It's supposed to punish the polluters and warn them off from doing it ever again and set an example for others, but it really doesn't make the victims whole.
Nope.
They're not restored to their prior healthy condition.
I mean, it's not like
and
a car wreck where
tragedy.
you have to replace my bumper and a couple of tires.
Yeah.
This
is
like
a car wreck where you broke your neck, and now you're in traction for the rest of your life. You can never be made whole when you're injured that way. So, these are the kinds of things we have to get right from the start. And, this is the kind of thing that never should have happened.
Because it just opens the door to other abuses along these lines.
Yep. That's right. Oh, they got away with it. Why can't I get away with it? That's all wrong. We need to make sure that the principle is put forward, established, and respected, that you don't get to harm others as part of doing business. You keep your stuff on your property. You clean up your own mess. You pay for that yourself, and you put that into the cost of your products and your services. And it's fair to tell your customers that they're paying for the whole package, because that's the right thing to do. And you don't get to harm others and then say, well, you can sue us later on if you can prove it. It's immoral, and it's a violation of fundamental economic principles. It doesn't look like a free market capitalist society to me. It looks more like a fascist economy where big, powerful corporations get the government to help them out and step all over the private citizens in the process, as long as somebody's getting paid. That's all wrong. So we have to fix that.
I am seeing...
That's my rant.
I am seeing quite the list. I don't know how many people we have in the state legislature, but I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's... I see 27 sponsors of the bill.
Right.
And it was introduced literally 1 week ago.
Yeah. 80 state reps and 40 senators. I think it's 120 of them totally. I think that's right. And, 27 co-sponsors in the House alone would be indicative, and I believe it's bipartisan.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that,
There's a lot of D's, but I see like 4 R's in here.
Yeah. And a fair number of our local reps are from each party. To me, this is not about political party. This is about fundamental principles of what's right and what's wrong. I would hate to be on the other side of this, frankly. I mean, how do you defend bad behavior?
There's 3 citations listed. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, this is just not... This is like a red sky at dawn. What's that old sailor saying?
Oh.
That your morning is going to be hell. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is insane. Yes, just type in NC bill 1095, and it was like second in my link. Holy mackerel. This is actually kind of exciting. I mean, after a lot of the wind came out of my sails finding out about the indictment. Knowing that we had gone all the way to that point, spent that much money, that much time, and we came away nada.
Yeah.
But it takes this type of thing to come through the legislation to say, all right, now we can do something. So apparently the lawsuits, as we're finding, I mean, there are lawsuits all over the place clogging the legal system, and very few of them are actually settled in any meaningful manner.
Right. Well, the attorneys are very skilled at dragging out civil actions. Bear in mind, there are 2 different levels of remedy here. Civil actions involve settlements for money, and a civil action requires a judgment to be based on a preponderance of the evidence. In other words, 51-49 in your favor, and you win. With an indictment, a criminal charge, the standard of proof is much higher. And generally, prosecutors want a slam dunk case. The standard of proof for a criminal conviction is beyond reasonable doubt. So if there's a possibility that a jury can be convinced that there were, there's any doubt, criminal intent is often a key issue. Did you do this knowing it was illegal? Or did you think you had permission? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, there are a lot of ways of arguing that so-and-so is not guilty of a crime. I'm not making excuses. Quite frankly, my own personal reading of the documents that I've seen indicate to me criminal intent. Now, that's my judgment. I'm a technical guy, and when I read the correspondence between DuPont and the state back in 2002, it sure looked like conspiracy to me. Yeah, it sure did.
It's like the children's novel version.
Yeah, it was wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff. Now, again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. So I don't know the details of what would be required to prove beyond a reasonable doubt a conspiracy. But it sure looked to me like DuPont told the state, oh, we're going to do the following and tell us if we need a permit to do it. And the state's response was they did respond, but not to that. They responded to a different question. So they clearly knew what they were being asked to do, and they clearly ignored the major point. And to me, that's right on the edge of conspiracy, which is a felony. It's a conspiracy to violate the Clean Water Act. That's how I would interpret it. Now, I may get pushback on that from various attorneys, but I know what happened as a result of it, and that's my opinion. I think the law was broken, and I think it was broken deliberately and with the connivance of the regulators. And I can't speculate too far about what their motives might have been, but I suspect that there were political motivations brought into play. So, very big industry, big taxpayer, big employer, and et cetera, a lot of political clout. I don't doubt that there was some very high-level interference.
And a contribution to somebody's campaign.
I can't rule that out. I think if you were to dig into the records, you might very well find that. I mean, campaign contributions, let's face it, everybody knows it's practically legalized bribery, right? The Supreme Court calls it speech.
That's weird. I have never heard my money talk.
Except money talks
you're
and
screwed.
BS walks, right?
Yeah, right.
You've heard that phrase, right? Yeah. If somebody says, I'd like you to do this for me, and they just ask politely in words, that's one thing. If they hand you $1,000 bill and say, oh, okay, yeah, cool.
Or in my world, if you want me to play Mustang Sally, I'm not going to listen to you until you write it on a 20. Then you get a short version. You write it on a 50, you get the full song.
The joke that I tell my class about how you get a septic tank permit in swampland is you make sure that you offer the inspector, who's usually a very young person, a suitably framed portrait of Benjamin Franklin. And that's how you get a septic tank permit. That's how it was done. Quite honestly, that's how septic tank permits were given out in coastal North Carolina.
Wow.
Hell of a lot of septic tank systems shouldn't have been installed.
Man, to me, do you remember the show Dukes of Hazzard?
Yeah.
Do you remember Boss? This all sounds like just one. There's like a boss hog somewhere.
Yeah.
Just sitting there like, oh, I got a little racket going with toilets. Now I got a racket going with water. You got them on both ends, coming and going.
Right. Right. There's another old ad that was about oil changes and stuff, but the phrase was, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. If we do things wrong now, we're going to pay for it later. And in some cases, it's not that big a deal, So if your septic tank doesn't work at your house, well, guess whose yard smells bad? Yours. But
the grass is super green.
Allowed. Yeah, right.
I mean, those are the two worst byproducts. And with Chemours, it's actually like cancer and death.
Yeah, that's right. In our drinking water supply, you're not fouling your own nest; they're fouling ours.
And we're looking at close to 1 million people draw from this?
The numbers I hear range around 250,000. So, yeah,
I am surprised
what's a
it's
few
that low.
100,000 here and there? That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's how many folks are downriver of them. Now, if you want to get, down into the weeds a little more, there are several industrial sources of 1,4-dioxane up in the Greensboro area who have not been stopped by the regulators in DEQ, and they're putting that suspected carcinogen into the water supply all the way upstream of us in the Greensboro area, the Haw River basin, and that stuff is flowing down in our direction. Here in Wilmington, we're basically at the back end of a big sewer.
Oh.
I mean, I hate to refer to the river as a big sewer, but in a sense it has been used as a big sewer.
Well, that's how they see it, apparently, that even Chemours is getting tainted water.
Right. Chemours is just doing what everybody else is doing.
Right. We got bad water. We're just adding to it, sending it on.
Right.
Oh.
Right. We're getting stuff from Fort Bragg. We're getting stuff from Fayetteville. We're getting stuff from all the towns upstream. Now, one would hope that all of those discharges are properly treated and do not contain anything harmful. One would hope. But our experience,
I'd bet on it.
Our experience with Chemours is, no, it's not true. Our experience that's ongoing with 1,4-dioxane is, no, it's not true. And I have a very strong suspicion, more than a suspicion, let's put it that way, that the 1,4-dioxane producers, the ones actually putting the stuff into their discharge, have some kind of political cover for doing that.
Okay.
I would love to see good investigative journalism poke into that.
Well, how about if we do? How can the House Bill 1095 be modified to cover any pollutants from anybody in our river?
Right now, I think the cynical part of me says that would probably get us all into trouble. It's focused on PFAS, and PFAS is a no-brainer. Nobody's in favor of having that, and et cetera. I mean, as I said earlier, I think this bill could be a model for similar actions by the state.
You mean like copy-paste for H1096?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And if the state has a statute about this particular situation, it might make lawsuits to stop the other situations that much easier.
I see.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a long game going here. We've already gone 5 years.
Yeah.
After 20 years of polluting, that now we're finally starting to play. All right.
Right. Okay. So, once you've developed a weapon like this one, I'll call it a legal weapon.
Yeah, man.
I wouldn't be surprised if we could apply it in other situations and say, all right, we made DuPont and Chemours clean up their mess and pay for it. How about these other guys who are producing carcinogens in our drinking water supply upstream and make them do the same?
I'm surprised Chemours hasn't thrown a little PR tantrum saying, we're not the only polluters.
Well, their ad about the wall, the poor saps they have reading the script. We're committed to doing right, and we hope others will do the same. And they're basically finger pointing at whom? Who else are they blaming there for the the PFAS pollution or whatever? We hope others will do the same. I would remind them that they're under consent decree. They're under court order to do what they're doing. It shouldn't be hard if we establish the facts to have a court order the same thing for other pollutants and just say, you're going to stop that.
Okay.
And we don't care what it costs.
Okay. Man, this is encouraging. I do have to say, coming into this, it was a little depressing. The two bits of information, this discussion, obviously, and I would like you to recap the state of the river information, if you would.
Yeah, that's right. And that PFAS is only one of the challenges. I mentioned another one, the 1,4-dioxane, but we've got agricultural runoff. We've got sewage that hopefully is treated properly, but who knows what contaminants are in there. There are other PFAS sources, firefighting foams, those compounds, that PFOS, PFOS, that stuff shows up all over the place. Multiple sources of that. That's got to be cleaned up. Some of those are military. Nurdles, yeah.
It's so much fun introducing people to nurdles. They don't think it's a real word. They think of the comedian who talked about the hyperdemic nurdle. I don't know if you remember him, but trying to introduce people to nurdle, which apparently the origin is a single container or ship that went down that had containers filled with nurdles, and they are now found in every waterway on the planet.
Yeah. And nurdles, for those who don't know, are these little pellets of plastic material that are then refined into the specific products, like plates and bottles and things like that. It's a lot easier to ship nurdles, these little pellets, that can then be melted and shaped.
They're super light. They're like...
Yeah,
their weight to their weight to surface area is so wide that they can float.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, they're very light, and you can pour them and stir them and shovel them and all of that. Suck them up with vacuums, all kinds of things. So they're real easy to handle, and then you put them into some kind of a machine that melts them and turns them into bottles or
forks,
whatever. Yeah, whatever it is you're trying to make with them. And they come in, there's different kinds of plastic, so you have different kinds of nurdles. But that's the basic product. They're like little droplets of plastic.
And these container ship went down with several containers, and that's the single source. And they're in that same wreck.
Yeah.
There's a guy, I cannot remember the country, but he has amassed one of the largest Lego collections for free ever.
Yeah.
Because the container ship went down, and now all these Legos are distributing themselves, that if he's collected several thousand, how many of these are now, part of a hermit crab's reality?
Right. Well, and then you get all the, the plastic debris, the stuff breaks down and you get smaller and smaller pieces.
And it shows up on your dinner plate. You cut into your tuna, and there's a bit of a Mountain Dew bottle right there.
Well, that may be a little dramatic, but if the fish eats a plastic bottle, it's going to stop up its intestine, and then you won't have a functional fish anymore. In other words, it'll die. And we see a lot of that. We see an awful lot of these animals out there with their guts full of plastic. And they die of starvation, intestinal blockages. If you think about that happening to you, it's pretty awful. It's a really nasty way to die.
I mean, that's why I don't eat the candy wrapper.
Yeah, exactly. We try to keep that
But we want
stuff
the
away
animals
from
to do
children,
that.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, think about it. Small kids, swallowing risk, that's a big deal with little kids, right? Why do we make sure that little kids don't swallow plastic stuff? Because it'll block up their intestines and they'll die. I mean, you'll intervene before that, but you'll have, a really serious situation. Yeah. And nobody wants to carry a little kid off to an emergency room with a blocked intestine, right?
And then look at the doctor and say, I don't know how he got his hands on that.
Yeah.
But we have no problem doing it to the deer, to the fish, to
fishes, birds, turtles, you name it. We
that
haven't
what you do to the least of us.
Yes. Ye have done it to me. That's right.
Well, Dr.
Try
Cahoon,
to keep that. Yep.
I do know that you're busy, and the Cape Fear Riverwatch State of the River event happening at Cape Fear Community College at the, I forget the venue.
I think it's Union Station.
Union Station.
Yep.
Everybody should get in their cars right now. Head on over there and catch.
Head on over there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get some lunch and the panel
Should be an
discussion.
excellent
I
event.
think would be a really good event as well.
Yeah, there will be a panel of experts. People with experience in the business.
And these aren't Fox News experts. These are actual PhD holding people.
One of them I know. I can't remember the full array. One of them will be Dr. Detlef Kanapi from NC State. He's the guy who really broke open the Gen X story. I mean, he's the ultimate
He's the celebrity
hero
in
of
this
that
thing.
story.
Yeah, man.
He is. And I've gotten to know Detlef over the years, and he's a really solid human being. I mean, he's a real pleasure to know. He's not a puffed-up egotist, very down-to-earth guy, but he is the expert on this stuff. And he'll give credit to a lot of other folks. It's a big enterprise that he's part of, but he was the guy who broke open the story.
Man. So if you want his autograph, he will be at the Cape Fear Community College Union Station from now until the panel discussion is over and they whisk him away to wherever secret location.
Yeah, right.
Because he's probably being hunted by, Chemours.
They wouldn't dare touch him. He's too public a figure. I think he's got
he's got tenure
or something like that. Oh, yeah, he does. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, he is internationally known. He's not a guy you would want to mess with. And he knows his stuff.
So he's hobnobbing with Greta Thunberg and David Hogg?
No, he's the real deal. I mean, not that they aren't, but he's a the accomplished scientist. He's a very serious expert in this stuff.
And that's what we're meaning by expert. That's what I want to point out is that I didn't know that the guy who broke it was going to be there. So that's some heavy hitting weight right there.
Yeah. And Detlef has stayed on top of this story all along. Bear in mind, tenure notwithstanding, it took a lot of courage to do what he did. He approached the Deputy Secretary of DEQ in November of 2016 with his results and said, Wilmington has a problem. And the Deputy Secretary, Tom Reeder, did nothing.
So basically he walked up to Goliath and squared up, and Goliath just walked away.
He walked away, that's right. And finally, 6 months later, the Star News got a hold of Detlef, and they broke the story. But he had tried his best to bring this to the attention of the regulators, and they not only failed, they refused to do their job. So
I'm hoping somebody has followed the money trail on that, because we're seeing the front end of it now that we have an actual House bill going through. That looking at the money trail for the avoidance on the DEQ side, and I'm going to see if I can't get somebody to look into that indictment, or rather the grand jury, see if we can't figure out how that would fail and why. Because how much money would it take to do that? Just to to convene the grand jury is expensive.
Oh yeah. The Eastern District U.S. Attorney, and it was a federal grand jury, would be the point of contact. Now, the first thing they're going to say is that grand jury proceedings
are secret, closed.
Are secret, but they can always say how
you can tell me who was there.
Dispose of the case. You can't know who the jurors were, but
I can know the prosecutors.
Did the jury return any finding, or did the attorney drop the case? Did the grand jury refuse to return an indictment? Those are questions I think you could conceivably get an answer to. If the attorney dropped the case, withdrew the charge to the grand jury, that's one thing. If the grand jury looked at the evidence in full and said, no, we don't see an indictable crime here, that's different. So it would be worth knowing that if that's possible to discover. I don't know. Again, I'm not an officer of the court, so I don't know the specifics on that. But that would be a logical starting place.
Makes sense.
And, yeah, as I said earlier, I personally, my take on things is that crimes were committed. Prosecuting them may have been very difficult. Somebody would have had to blow the whistle, and somebody would have had to be granted immunity, perhaps, that sort of thing. It gets kind of messy. But, a zealous attorney can usually ferret out who did what and who said what to whom. And, I saw enough in the paper record to tell me that something stunk. Something was clearly wrong with how this was handled. And I'm not going to buy that, we just had an oversight. That's absolutely unacceptable.
Understood.
Yeah.
Man. So everybody get down to the Cape Fear Community Center's Union Station. I think I have that right. And get involved, because we are very much affected by everything that happens up there. Because that water comes to us, we have to drink it. We have the worst part about it, the biggest crime, Doctor, to me, is I have to make my coffee with this.
Yeah, true.
Right? So,
yeah,
my roommates and I...
water is such a precious resource. It's how we drink coffee.
Yep. My roommates and I have taken to using bottled water, and that's getting a little bit expensive when trying to use, an entire liter of water to make a cup.
Perhaps we need to adopt café con leche, coffee made with milk.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'd have to verify that the cows were
drinking.
Safe.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's almost like a comet tail. It just keeps reaching further and further and further.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because we look at it and it's just, like the width of your thumb in the sky. But as you get closer to it, because of how far away it is, you realize that tail is longer than the distance between the Earth and the Sun. That part blows my mind. But anyway, it is now 10 after. You have a busy day, especially with the events going on. You get out of here. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
And I need to get on with the... I got to pay bills, ladies and gentlemen. So, hey, we all got to make money. I'm just trying to do polluting people's ear holes, because all it takes is a Q-tip and you're fine. And if you need, you can send me the bill for your Q-tips. I'll get them at the DG. So with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you tomorrow on the Big Talker right here at the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. See you then.
Keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach. We wouldn't sell you a dining room table, so don't buy a